everyone, and welcome back to GameXplain's official Game of the Year award celebration. How this is going to work this time is we're each bringing one pick, our personal pick for Game of the Year. We're going to make our case for it, why we liked it, why it's so good, why it may deserve to even win our overall Game of the Year, because for the first time ever, we're all voting too, because each of our personal picks becomes a nominee for the outlet's Game of the Year. So once we're done making our case for our respective winners, or our respective choices rather, then we'll all vote, and you'll see why. You'll hear our thought process and why we're voting for each individual game, as we then tabulate the results and pick an overall winner for the year from GameXplain to make it the Game of the Year for 2023. Should be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Let's get started. Adam, what is your favorite, or your personal, nominee, your personal pick for Game of the Year this year?
Well, I think this is going to be quite controversial, but it's Resident Evil 4. And it's for multiple reasons. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's a remake. It doesn't deserve to be on the Game of the Year. But it's a whole new game in my eyes. It's fundamentally changed. And I just want to start with, everybody loves the combat from Resident Evil 4, the original. Very expressive combat system. You know, you lure people over to a bridge, you can throw them off a bridge, you can suplex them, you can blow up barrels, you can do all this in the original. But Resident Evil 4 remake is just that times 10. Absolutely everything that you could do in the original, you can do now, and you can do it better, you can do it faster, you can do it there's just Leon's capabilities and moveset is genuinely one of the best combat systems I have ever seen in a game. And not only that, the tone is slightly different, where the characters are actually more like characters. Ashley doesn't just run around saying Leon all the time. She actually has a character, and they have conversations with each other, kind of, similar to something like The Last of Us or BioShock, where they're actually talking to each other. They're not just like a random companion. And then on top of that, there's just so much content for their separate ways, which I still haven't played. There's Mercenaries mode, which is one of my favorite extra modes this year. And then just a couple of days ago, I finally worked up the courage to download the VR mode for PSVR 2. And even though I've only played like an hour and a half, 2 hours of this, because I'm genuinely absolutely terrified and cannot go any further, I absolutely love the VR mode. This is one of the best VR modes in any game ever made, and it basically just feels like a brand new game.
Wow. Delightful.
Right.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Made a good case for it.
Yep.
Jake, what is your overall Game of the Year for yourself?
Friends, fans, gamers, my Game of the Year for the one and only 2023, that beautiful lady, has gotta be Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
What was that?
Nothing! I'm building!
No, I can stop this!
We can fight together! Great.
I think Marvel Spider-Man 2 encapsulates a lot of the reasons that I personally, for my tastes, love playing video games. I want to start with talking about, as a sequel, what it does that I find so inspiring. A lot of sequels these days, I feel like they're just kind of extending the story or putting stuff on top of the game that was already there. Marvel Spider-Man 2, Insomniac, they said, let's re-interrogate things that people loved about the original game. So they look at something like the web swinging, which we all remember, 2018, people loved it. Every single review makes you feel like Spider-Man. We all remember this. But in this game, they said, okay, how do we make this more, inspire more creativity? How do we add like a suite of options and variables to make it more interesting to the player on a moment-by-moment basis? And they were able to do that through this crazy collection of things that you can now do while you're web swinging or to get yourself started. I love the one where you find two things in the environment and you pull yourself back and you go, "Ah!" You know, that is just an ultimate Spider-Man thing. I love that. But then the web wings make you much more of an active player when you're swinging. There's a much higher skill ceiling. It's way more risk reward. It actually takes you a while to get used to using them. Really fun. They did the exact same thing with the combat. No longer pull up that gadget wheel that freezes everything on the screen and lets you kind of think about which item you want to pick, and it's like broken and interrupts that flow? Now it's all on hotkeys. So you have this system that never takes you out of the flow of combat, like Spider-Man should be. I know in 2018 they said it makes you feel like Spider-Man, but not nearly as much as this game. Because it was willing to re-examine its core. But the reason I love this game so much, the thing that puts it over the top, has to be its video game narrative. Not its story. It's the video game story, how it is perfectly made for a game. This is a story that sets itself up so that the scope and the stakes are constantly ratcheting up and up and up. Things just get crazier and crazier and crazier and more fun for the player. But the thing that really spoke to me and pointed out, I think what a lot of video games are doing incorrectly, is that every time something meaningful happens for a player, anytime something that happens to a character in the game that changes their perspective on the world or the people around them, it is backed up with a new gameplay mechanic that makes that moment, that character moment, more memorable and meaningful for the player because it actually changes what you're doing on the sticks. Like, one of my favorite things in the game is that Miles is fighting the villain from the first game, Mr. Negative, the person that kills his father in the first game. And he's going through this like whole story about like, am I gonna give in? Am I gonna be the monster? Am I gonna kill this guy? And meanwhile, that ties in to every other character in the game. Kraven running around begging for somebody to be enough of a monster that they try to kill him. Venom trying to turn Peter Parker into a monster. All these things tie together. But when Miles is fighting Mr. Negative, when he overcomes that moment, he gets an ability in the game that pulls everybody into him and then explodes. And the reason he gets that power is because when he's fighting Mr. Negative, he gets all of these visions of all of the things that worry him about his life, about how he wasn't there to protect his dad, how he's not going to be there to protect his mom, and all of these visions are attacking him. And rather than pushing them away, he goes, no, because these things happen to me, I have a responsibility. He finds power in them. He lets the bad things in his life come inside of his heart and make him stronger. And that is reflected in the gameplay mechanic that you gain from that moment. So you're not just watching cinematic cutscenes happen to somebody else and them go through something. You as the player are benefiting from every single narrative beat. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it a video game that really spoke to me. It's amazing, it's inclusive, it is powerful, it knows when to be epic and loud and when to be quiet and sentimental, and for those reasons and more, it is my game of the year for 2023.
Wow. All right, that was one heck of a speech for that. So
I love that
nicely
game.
Done.
I love it so much.
All right, Joey, what's your game of the year for 2023?
My game of the year is a game I've been waiting for a very long time, 13 years as a matter of fact, Alan Wake 2.
Done this either. We're trapped by the genre. No! We have a fictional writer named Alan Wake.
Write these pages, Mr. Wake.
You're the killer, the cult leader.
No! You've got the wrong man! I know a lot of people have said about the first Alan Wake, it hasn't aged well, all that stuff, yada yada yada, but Alan Wake 2 improves upon just about every single aspect of that first game. The combat is no longer repetitive. In fact, it takes a lot of cues from Resident Evil 4, Adam's game of the year, with an inventory system, with basically turning it into a survival horror game where counting your ammo is just very necessary here. But I shouldn't say it's exactly the focus of the game. That all lies within its story, which is one of the many strengths of developer Remedy Studios. Basically, Epic Games, the publisher, gave Remedy Games like millions of dollars and said, go nuts. Absolutely go nuts. No creative notes from us or anything, and you feel that in here. The game is weird. It is wild. You play as two different characters. Alan Wake, who's been trapped in the dark place for 13 years, so you get to see what he's been dealing with down in this extremely twisted dark dimension with graphics that are like the best looking visuals I've ever seen, period. Like, hands down, game just straight up looks like real life at times. I don't know how they were able to do that, but with its narrative, it's so hard to describe this narrative because it is a horror game, but it's also like transcendent of that. It's all about they take the multiverse for one, and they make it not lame, which is a very very big deal. It's horrifying in that nature. It's almost cosmic, I would say. This is more of a cosmic horror game than anything. And having waited for the sequel for 13 years, you really feel like it's been 13 years in this game. And the narrative twists and turns it takes along the way, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but it made my jaw hit the floor at times. I was just absolutely satisfied with everything Alan Wake 2 did. And if you're not convinced this game is Game of the Year, go play Initiation Chapter 4, featuring Old Gods of Asgard's Herald of Darkness. You saw that at the Game Awards, but they didn't even show the best part, and that was Alan Wake's slam poetry. Game of the Year 2023.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little surprised it wasn't Metroid Prime remastered, but I can see why.
You know, it was tough because it's pretty much, other than its visuals and controls, the same game from 2002 in my opinion. So it's up there on my list, but it's not number one for me.
Joey, I like how you said. In mine, it makes you feel like Spider-Man, and yours was, it makes you feel like it's been 13 years. It's awesome.
I'm just gonna point out, like, it not being Metroid Prime just is another point
in favor, in its favor.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right, Tom, what's your Game of the Year for 2023?
All right, get ready to take a photo to make it last longer, unless you place that photo in the world, because my Game of the Year is Viewfinder. It's a photography puzzle game where you take photos and then you hold them up and place them, but all that 3D geometry gets placed in the world to create bridges. You can turn the photo to solve like platforming puzzles of what to do. For me, this had the most sort of innovation and unique gameplay that I played this year, and I got to play it back in the middle of the year. I got time to reflect on it, thinking here and now, and it stood out to me at this point, just what they did, what they achieved, how excellently the mechanic worked in the game. And part of it too is like you are taking these photos to either add to the world or maybe even cut out parts. There's limits where some things that are like a dark blue you can't put a photo through, so you have to figure out how to get inside the cage or duplicate batteries to power up different teleportation grids. At the time, I was looking forward to this game a lot, and I almost was thinking like this could be a Portal-like game, which is kind of like game of the decade-like material. I felt the story held it back a bit, but even for me, it's game of the year still. It's just not like game of forever like a Portal. And for me, the puzzles came naturally. Maybe some people have trouble with them. I usually I'm putting around thumbnails and stuff. I do a lot of visualization with how things fit together. Maybe that's an advantage to me. It lets you experiment super quickly because there's a you can quickly rewind back to where you want to go, or even to points like instant rewind to where you put photos to let you experiment and try super quick. It removes the frustration. And it has limits. Like some of the levels let you take as many photos as you want, but most of them would be like a limit of 2 to 6 photos. So you have to kind of think about it. It lets you choose solutions and be flexible, but at the same time, like not go nuts and just have an easy way out. So in the end, thinking about that, how well they did everything. There's been kind of similar games before where you can change the size of things, but yeah, the whole package here, I just stood out to me the most in terms of gameplay innovation. So, Game of the Year.
All right, Triss, what is your Game of the Year?
Well, this should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone, whether it's you guys here or any of our viewers. But my favorite game this year, my Game of the Year, is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. And let me preface this, but I know, right? I know, right? Jake, so shocking. Let me preface this with something. Breath of the Wild. I liked Breath of the Wild, but it really just felt like an open world game with a Zelda skin tossed over it. It never really clicked like a Zelda game for me, it did. And I liked elements of it, but I really wanted them to see them push the world further. And while I know it's very divisive that Tears of the Kingdom uses the same world, that's actually one of my favorite aspects of it, because this is one of the first times in a Zelda game you go back to the same world. You can find a ton of characters, important or not, from the first game, see what they're up to now, and see how the world has developed. The entire town that you helped build in Breath of the Wild is now like a thriving city in Tears of the Kingdom, and you can see what everyone there is doing with their lives. Like, the people that made the town now have a daughter. Like, there's elements to it that you really see how much it is developed. One of the most important characters in the game is a kid that has grown up from the first game. And you never really had that in Zelda before. So it added a connection to this world that made it far more interesting for me, because I already knew certain expectations about this world. Okay, well, I know where these different cities are, I know who I could find there, and then it became a matter of wanting to go and find them. And with this story that fits even more in the world of Zelda, it did a much better job selling me that this is in the world of The Legend of Zelda. This is a threat they're facing, set up by Ganon or Ganondorf or whatever they usually have. In this case, it's Ganondorf. He's coming back. He's not this weird climate problem. He's an actual force that is there, and his power is so strong, he's severely affecting the world with his power, and you have to go around, really try to help everyone with it. But I really loved how connected this world felt, more than the first one. And I think it really felt like a connected Hyrule to me. The puzzles that you find, especially in the shrines, I found to be a lot more interesting than the first time around. And sure, where did the Sheikah shrines go? I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions that are definitely
doesn't
weird
know either.
about the game, but I don't mind that, is the thing. That didn't take away from the experience for me, because the game was already posing new questions and new ideas for its own story that I was more invested in, because, well, time has passed in this world. I can believe things have changed, but I want to know what's happening now with this, or with Zelda in the past. And I think the game did a great job with how many things you can do in the world, like getting the memories, for example. Sure, people weren't too happy that there were memories again, but I think the quest of getting the memories felt more interesting in this one than in Breath of the Wild, because it's something even Link didn't know happened. It's not regaining his memories, it's getting the perspective of piecing together the other half of the story that he doesn't have to understand how they got to where they are now. And especially the climax of the game, that final battle is probably one of like the most epic Zelda final battles I've ever seen in that series. Like, standing atop the dragon, fighting another dragon, the music, like the climax and the music through all that, it took my breath away. The climax of that game. So,
wow.
And Tears of the Kingdom, I never expected it. It is my number 2 favorite Zelda game in general.
Wow.
Which I never actually expected it to get on that list.
Cool.
All right, well, making quite the case for Tears of the Kingdom there, Triz. So I'm glad at least someone nominated the game.
I know I had to make a good case with all of you.
All right, well, I guess that leaves just me left. So for my overall game of the year, like, I tend to go with whatever like resonated with me the most emotionally. And for a lot of people, that that can be a happy thing, a somber thing, whatever it is. For me, it is what riveted me the most this year, and that is a game that's part remake, part all new, all F-Zero 99, baby. This is my game of the year. There is no game I had more fun with at all than this game. Every moment is like a white knuckle thrill ride as you try to hang in there with 98 other opponents as you're racing for that first place finish. And the thing is, though, unlike some other battle royales, I don't even care that much where I finish. Obviously, I want first. That's everyone does. I have fun no matter where I end up, even if I'm blowing up shortly after the finish line. This game is so well engineered, taking the fundamentals of a 16-bit era game, updating it to just work wonderfully in a manner that feels fair and always competitive to a degree that I think exceeds Mario Kart, which is that entire game's kind of point. And it's just so well designed from a gameplay perspective, like with the Skyway, allowing players who are farther behind a chance to catch back up in a way that, again, feels fair, because they still have to collect these energy orbs, which they can gain more of by being in the back, in order to have a chance to get to the Skyway and a chance to catch up. And it's just such a fun time. It's just so fun. I never imagined Nintendo would make a proper battle royale with everyone existing in the same space that actually feels competitive and fair, super fun, and it's free. Not that that's influenced my vote at all, but it is a free game. My game of the year is free if you have NSO, and you can play it right now. And I just can't, like, everything about this game just feels so perfectly tailored to what this experience is meant to be, to the point that it almost makes the original game like unplayable now. Like, why would I play that when I have this? It's just that fun. And now you can basically have that original experience too in this game, thanks to a new mode, which reminded me why I like this game in the first place. But I'm like, yeah, that mode is really tough. You make one mistake, you're out. Whereas, the SNES version mode, whereas in the original core gameplay of '99, it just feels like a completely fair, thrilling, competitive experience that I just found myself invested in every moment of this game. So, how this is going to work, everyone, for you at home, in case you don't know, we're all going to go off, we're all going to make our own votes, we're going to explain our voting process as we go through it. We each have 3 tokens we're awarding the selection of games. We can't vote for our own, so one token's worth 3 points, the gold one's worth 3, silver's worth 2, bronze is worth 1. We'll walk you through our process and explain why we're voting the way we are, whether it's based on our personal picks, based on games we played, or the arguments someone made for that game, or just our vibe on it. Whatever it is, we'll explain it in the process. Once we all vote, which you will see some of at least, we'll regroup, deliver the overall result, and we'll talk about it. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll see you soon.
It's voting time, and there were some quite compelling arguments put together for all of these games. And look, I'm not above a bribe. Maybe Jake slipped me $50 in a brown envelope, and maybe I will give Spider-Man 2 the gold place.
Woo boy! I don't even know where to start with this, because we have a strong selection of games here, even if this wouldn't be my personal, top 6. But hey, that's what makes this fun, right?
For bronze, for this, I'm giving it to Tears of the Kingdom. Triss spoke highly of the story and the Zelda enemies. We're concerned about the Minecraft-y elements of the building. I think something that wasn't brought up as much is that the weapon crafting solved a big problem in Breath of the Wild. First, where your items would break, but just how fun it was just to build crazy weapons. That kind of felt like Zelda to me.
I'm gonna give to RE4, because I actually think RE4 was a fantastic game this year. I had a great time with it, but it's not one that stood out to me as an exceptional title of the year. It's great, it's well-rounded, it's a fantastic game, but it's not one of the standout titles to me for the year, personally.
Okay, so here's my ranking. I'm gonna give my bronze to Tears of the Kingdom right here. Yeah, Triss had some very good arguments. Triss, they're a big Zelda fan, so I totally understand what they're saying here. And yeah, this is a very impressive game. It's definitely deserved all the Game of the Year noms that it's gotten. But personally, I feel like it could have been better. It could have been more Zelda-y, if that makes sense. I know Triss said like they really did better here with the Zelda aspects, but I felt like they could have done even more, but I still gotta give it a bronze for that.
So let's go ahead and figure out where we should put this bronze medal. I think Spider-Man 2 is more up my alley, and based on the arguments that Jake put forth for it, especially with this story of the man on the bench in one of our Game of the Year videos, either this one or the previous one, that actually did sound really impactful and meaningful.
So now we have to give the silver coin. The silver coin goes to either Tears of the Kingdom, or Spider-Man 2?
I think for me, I know this is a little uncouth, but I gotta start with my gold token, okay? I gotta let the chips fall around this puppy. I know who's getting it, so my 3 points, my gold, is going to Alan Wake 2. I feel like they were able to capitalize on being camp, but while still having like serious themes and being able to talk about real ideas. It's not just a story about the stuff in it. It's a story that has something to say. It has teeth, which I think a lot more video games could use. So that gets my gold.
Either Resident Evil 4 Remake or Viewfinder could take it. I really, Viewfinder is such an amazing concept. Lovely idea. I didn't finish the game, and that's partially because I just kind of burned out on it, to be honest. It's a really cool idea, but it didn't seem like it was doing enough with it to keep me engaged. I felt like once I kind of got the basic idea for it, I kind of saw everything that I was doing.
Our silver one, worth 2 points. I'm torn. There's 2 games here, with 2 in the name, that I really like, both of them, and it's actually very tough.
It is completely expressive. Expressive is a word I use a lot because that is what I want in my games. I want to be able to express myself through games with the mechanics that they give to me. So, I think for that reason, and that reason alone,
Resident Evil 4. Gotta love what Adam said here. It really is just a better version of the original Resident Evil 4, a game which I did like when I played it. I enjoyed it a lot on Wii, but as for me, this is the only way to play Resident Evil 4.
As much as I myself wished I had done things differently, at the end of the day, the game here that I can vote for that I would want to play the most of these 6 is actually... Hey everyone, and we're back the next day with the final results of GameXplain's Game of the Year. Jake has tabulated the results. We're about to go through them in just a second. I believe we're doing the top 3, so we're not going to show the full rankings, but Jake's got the top 3 for us. And before we get to it though, how are we all feeling? Are we nervous about the results? Do we have any idea what the results are besides Jake, of course? Jake's already like, I don't know what this reaction is.
The voting, actually, sitting down, I'm glad we did it the way we did because I talked myself into something that I initially was not going to vote. I started to explain it, and I was like, oh my god, I do feel this way. And it changed the way that I voted. So yeah, it was crazy.
No, that's actually really interesting, because for me, like, I had that vision, and I kind of stuck with it, but it was still a case of like really like trying to understand how I would divide up my votes, because there were so many good games this year. Yeah. Like, this year really was stacked.
My vision definitely changed after the speeches. I'll say that.
Yeah, my vision changed when Jake slipped me a brown envelope.
My vision changed multiple times to the point that I actually had to re-record that video like 5 times before just to solidify it. Like, and I still hadn't had it figured out by the time I got to it.
Yep. Oh
otherwise, it would be like a half-an-hour long video. But yeah, it was interesting, especially because we couldn't vote for our own choices. Yeah. So, with that out of the way, without further ado, Jake, let's get to the top 3 for Game of the Year, starting with 3, 2, then 1.
Okay, starting with number 3, I want to say that this was close. Number 4 was just barely edged out, okay? But number 3 goes to, with 7 points, Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Ooh. All right. That was your pick, Adam. How do you feel about that?
Pretty disappointed, to be honest.
Oh!
Third place doesn't count. Nobody remembers who finished second, who finished third. Everybody only remembers who came first.
But Adam, you got 3rd place, and I feel like 4, 5, and 6. They're not even out here right now, and it was close. It was very close.
Let's move on to number 2, Jake. What do you got for us?
Okay, so from 3 to 4, that was a 1-point difference. From 3 to 2, a 1-point difference.
Wow.
This is close.
Okay. Number 2, GameXplain'S Game of the Year. Number 2 is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. That is a good ranking, yet not Game of the Year. Tris, how do you feel about this?
I really do love this game, and I didn't expect it to get into the top 3 from us, honestly. Wow. So it's a pleasant surprise. I'm happy about this.
Jake can probably attest to how insane my voting video must have been, because this really messed me up. I'm like, oh my god, how am I voting? I don't know.
I saw that too. I was like, whoa, okay, Andre.
Now I think it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Now, while 2, 3, and 4, those were very close races. I got to admit, this one really jumped ahead. This was no question. Many of us, a couple of us could have not voted. I think it still would have won. So
just to be clear, this is our overall, Game Explain's overall Game of the Year now. Our first ever official outlet Game of the Year.
Yeah, that is right. Game Explains 2023 Game of the Year is Marvel Spider-Man 2! Flip, flip! Let's go, baby! Yeah! Oh my god, you love to see it.
Congrats to Spider-Man 2. Jake, that was your nominee, your pick. How are you feeling about this?
It feels good. It feels good. You know, I went out to dinner last night, a little preemptive celebration, I guess. And,
wow.
And I'm talking to my fiance, and she says, "I heard you screaming about something yesterday. Was it Spider-Man?" And I go, "Yes, Sarah." And then I pretty much repeated that speech to her over dinner. It was awful. Thank God she's locked in for life. But yeah, I just really the game. I think every time I talk about the game, I remember just like how much it means to me as like a huge superhero fan to have what I think is the definitive superhero experience now in video games, but also to have a Spider-Man, to have a Peter Parker that I feel like is right up there with the best of multimedia Peter Parkers in terms of characterization and performance. Like that is so cool. To have a combat system that I love so dearly, to have a traversal system that I think is so fun. Insomniac delayed New Game Plus into 2024. It gave me depression. I love Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I think it is a excellent video game and the gold standard for how to do a sequel, and it really spoke to something I wanted in video games in terms of sequels after being disappointed by several in a row. People might remember my God of War Ragnarok review. It made me depressed. I'm a Breath of the Wild big boy fan, and then I didn't like Tears of the Kingdom. So to have this game come out, my expectations were whatever about it, and then I remember like texting in the work chat going, this game just went from a 9 to a 10. It just went from a 10 to 11. It just went from an 11 to a 12. I am just so glad I had that experience this year in video games. Thank you all for voting for it for Game of the Year.
You gave it the highest score we had, didn't you?
I did.
Mind-blowing?
I did, yeah. Adam was the lead reviewer, so Adam gave it a loved, but my score was mind-blown. Yeah.
I think that's completely understandable. There's a very specific phrasing you just said in there that I completely resonate with, and it's like definitive superhero game.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 really is that, and I also like adore everything I've experienced in this game so far. It's definitely more than I expected it to be for a sequel to the Spider-Man game, and it's absolutely deserving of the recognition that it gets.
Yeah.
Adam, as the lead reviewer, how are you feeling about this?
I put it in my number 2 spot, so you know, it's pretty good. I'm thinking. One thing about Spider-Man is how much of a technical achievement it is. The fact that it
technical
has
marvel.
I didn't want to say. I already said that. I think in the review.
Saw you
I
hesitate.
I didn't want to say it again. And like, it's crazy how Insomniac just. Firstly, how efficient they are and how many games they get out in such a quick time, and the quality of the games they bring out. And then they have all of these ray tracing modes, performance mode, 40 FPS, 4K, 120 FPS, and it's just like absolutely amazing to play through them all, testing out all the different modes. And yeah, that's what I'd say about Spider-Man. I'm not as high in it as Jake is, because at the end of the day, it's an open world game for me. That's all it is. But it's one of the best, if not the best, of that sort of game.
All right, well said. So, Jake, I have to know now, what was number 4? Because that was so close to number 3, you said, right?
Yeah, so number 3 came in 7 points, Resident Evil 4 Remake. Number 4 was 6 points, Alan Wake 2.
Oh, wow. So
That's a relief. I'm glad I wasn't last place.
No. Yeah, Alan Wake 2 got some big points from some of us. And I think just like looking at the points now, I think it is cool that the game that won our Game of the Year, Spider-Man, is every single one of you. I couldn't vote for it, but every single one of you gave at least 1 point to it. So that's great, you know?
I think that speaks to the strength of the case you made for it as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's a game I haven't actually played myself, but like Jake made a compelling argument for it, so I'll give it some of my points at the least.
Excellent.
But so yeah, that's it, everyone. That is our official Game of the Year for 2023. Congrats again to Spider-Man 2, and of course, just being nominated is an honor. All of these games that we put up here are fantastic, so definitely check them all out. Otherwise, we're about done here, I think. So make sure to stay tuned for our upcoming end of the year wrap up, including looking forward to what's ahead in 2024. I'm sure there'll be much talk about Nintendo's slate of games, rumors, Switch 2 stuff, who knows what. Should be a lot of fun. With everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.